What we're going to talk about today. We want to go back and do a little bit of review as we talked about our focus areas and the whole process we started. Believe it or not, it's been almost 2 years since we started this process in the parish council of starting the strategic plan. It took us 6 to 8 months, I believe, just to get the whole focus area stuff done. And that was the first step of what's important to the parish, what do we want to do. And then after that, we started the master planning ongoing process about what we want to do with our grounds. Okay, so we're going to go through that a little bit, talk about those focus areas, talk about the master planning activities we've been going through for the last year or so, and then talk about the plan that we want to present to the diocese of our next stages for our parish. Okay. Again, as I said a second ago, we went through a couple of town halls just even deciding what our focus areas are. You guys remember what those are? It's a test. Anybody remember what our focus areas are? Come on. Oh man. Evangelization, youth and young adults, ongoing campus improvement, and anything. So it took us a while, but we got that done. And then from that point, we've been doing updates about every 3 to 4 months. The last one we did was during our feast day in August. Carol and I stood up, gave handouts, and we gave an update then. And then since that time, we've also had a lot of master planning subgroups. So as we moved into this process with Gaston Walker, we created a lot of subgroups and got a lot of input. We talked to a lot of folks around the campus, around the parish, and then consolidated all that feedback into the plan we're going to talk about here today. You passed the test. That's the focus areas. Again, ongoing campus improvement, youth and young adults, and then evangelization. So then we moved, like I said, from that, what are the focus areas, to what are we going to do specifically with our ongoing campus improvement? What is the future for us as a parish as we think about over the next 5 to 10 years? What do we want this place to look like? And that's the process we moved into. But as we did that, we said we can't forget the other focus areas. We got to make sure that whatever we do from a campus improvement standpoint, we still make sure that we honor all of the feedback we got from everybody and make sure that we are still looking forward to youth and young adults and evangelization. So whatever we do from a campus improvement standpoint needs to continue those focus areas. We said as a parish we wanted to move from being reactive to proactive. And then we wanted to make sure that it was looking forward from a parish growth standpoint. And we defined growth as both revenue, so income streams, but also what are the things that could bring young families to our parish. Okay? When Carol and I were part of the diocesan assessment, I represented the parish with the diocesan assessment a few years ago, and they were looking at all the churches and deciding which ones are going to stay and all that good stuff. It was very clear how the diocese looks at the data. They gave us a lot of data around births, baptisms, weddings, and funerals. And when one number is more high than the other, it's not a good projection for the parish. Right? When we have way more funerals than we're having baptisms, they start making decisions based on it. So we want to make sure we're getting young families into the parish. And then we want to look for community synergy. When we did all of our input, we heard a lot from you all about making sure that we were continuing to be a part of the community here. And a lot of folks in the neighborhood don't even know we're a Catholic church. So we've got to work on that. So as I'm talking today, you're gonna hear us talking about the old administration building. This is the Mount Park campus. The old administration building, a worship space, Ferguson Hall at the bottom, and then the St. Monica building over there. All right. So those are the 4 buildings we're talking about today. So since we started this in the last 12 to 15 months or so, we had to get pastor's approval to move forward. We interviewed 4 different architect groups. We selected Gassinger Walker, and they did for us the grounds assessment that gave us a very, very thorough assessment of all of our buildings. There's some work that needs to be done in our buildings. A very thorough assessment. We've created a building and maintenance team that's addressing some of those issues. Maybe you've noticed the parking lot is different. Some of the pillars are painted, trees are gone. This team is moving and working on the maintenance of our buildings and facilities. And again, part of the master planning process, we got a lot of input from you all and had a lot of small group discussions on what do we want for the future. So our ideal plan, this is what we like to present to the diocese. We'll still have to get it approved, and you see it's big bold letters there, it's not approved as of yet. We just got the date a few days ago. We're going to present this to the diocese and to the bishop next week, the 18th. So a week from Wednesday. But our ideal plan, again, as a church, we have to focus on our worship space and make sure that's continuing to be upgraded and updated. We want to add in some audio, video, improve the sound. The AC, part of our assessment told us that the AC it's still like a new church to us, but it's been 20-something years. The AC and the heating has outlived its useful life. And again, if we want to move from reactive to proactive, we need to be making sure that we're ahead of that game before it dies on us totally. We had a few warm weekends this summer, if you all remember. Ferguson Hall. We want this to be a first-class event space. Think weddings, think huge parties with audio, video stuff installed. We're not scrambling around to get our extension cords to plug a computer in and putting a screen up here, but we have it all updated. So when someone does have a reception, or even funerals, you want people to be able to show the pictures and that. If you want a first-class event space, it needs to be done. Adding elevator, updating the audio video here, warming kitchen in the back. And downstairs, we're thinking meeting space, make it like a dual-purpose meeting space for downstairs and renovating the kitchen. Okay? But this place needs to be a first-class event space. Yeah. And we've done some research and found that there's several in the area, but many of them don't have what we could have here. Fathers told us that at Our Lady of Sorrows, they get 50 weddings a year. It's great, it's a beautiful church, but they have no event space. Okay, they have no event space, so whoever goes there to get married has to go somewhere else for the reception. Many of the event spaces in the area don't have off-street parking. So, think about this. I'm a beautiful bride, standing on my altar. My dress is hanging down low. There's stained glass behind me. I know, okay, stretching. Beautiful bride. Now, this lady's getting her pictures taken at the end of the wedding. Their cars are parked in off-street parking safely. And the folks are just walking across the hall for the reception. Yep. There's not many places that we have to find any that have all three of those. Right. Off-street parking, a nice event space, and a church in the same location.
And near the hotels.
Near hotels. Okay. So that's what we want for this space. We want it to be a first-class event space with all of that updated. St. Monica renovation. One of the things that we got from the assessment there is that building is not so structurally sound. You may know that a few years back there was leaks in the roof, that water has gone down the walls, the foundation is not great. We already can't really use the second floor because there's issues with the ceiling. The roof is fine, but the ceiling is deteriorating, and so it's not really safe for us to be up here. So we definitely like to have, again, this is our ideal plan, like to have that renovated. The administration building. Again, we're a small parish. We believe that we can focus on Ferguson and the other buildings and the administration building over there. We're going to look for partnerships. We don't have a plan right now, but we're going to, as we're talking with the diocese, our plan is to say, hey, this is our plan. This is what we would like to do. How does that match with what the diocese wants to do? Do you have something that can help us meet our goals of bringing young families? Do you want to make a daycare center? Do you want to put another school here? Whatever but we have space and we need partnerships that drive what we want as a parish. So that's the presentation we're going to make to the diocese. And if they don't have anything, we'll find something else. But we can't do what we want here in Ferguson and St. Monica building and the church and that. So we're going to leave that one mothballed for now and look for partnerships to really do something effective. Now, to really do that, I used the same slide, I just put the money part in the worship space. We're talking about with the improvements we'd like to make, that's about $380,000. What we'd like to do here in Ferguson is going to be a little over $2 million. Okay? The St. Monica renovation is about $1 million. Okay? So that's what we have to present to the diocese, and I know that sounds like a lot for a small parish like us. Many parishes, that might not be much money. For us, that's a lot of money. So we have to have a plan on what we're going to do next. And for that ideal plan to be successful, our goal is to go after grants pretty aggressively and try to get 50% of what we want to spend via grants. That sounds like a lot, but I also know Catholic Charities just had a major project that they're in the middle of now. They had a $6.8 million project, and they got $4 million out of the 6.8 from grants. So that's like almost 60%. Ideally, so I'm not being so optimistic that we can get 60, but if we can get 50%, what the heck? Let's go after it. Free money. Let's get those grants. We will have to have our own capital campaign and get 20% pledges from the parish. Okay? What we've been told is that the diocese, in order to fund the next step and approve everything, we have to have 70% of the money. Okay, so that's why we're going to go 50 from grants, and we're going to get 20% in campaigns from the parish. And then finance the rest through the diocese. Again, I've already talked about creating partnerships with the administration building, and then we need to definitely, once we do all of this, I think that's, as we think about, back to when we built our church, we didn't really have a good ongoing capital maintenance fund to keep everything improved. And we're going to have to redo that. Okay. What if the ideal plan is not successful? Our priority needs to be Ferguson because of the money generation opportunities and our worship space. At some point, we may need to remove the administration building if we can't keep, create those partnerships that I mentioned. If we can't, then that may have to be removed. We may need a different strategy for the St. Monica building, but our focus area needs to be church and Ferguson. That's our plan. So the last point is, even if we didn't raise a dime, we'd still have about $1 million in improvements just for the foundation of this building. There is a crack. It's a very sound building based on the assessment. Very sound, but there's a crack over here in the foundation. There's a few at the AC and heating, the boiler system. All of that stuff is outdated. So when you start looking at just for the church and this building, we're talking about $1 million. Yeah. So it's not as much of a stretch then to say we want to go $3 million and really think about what's next for the future in terms of setting us up for the next 100 years, as Father says. We've been here for over 100. Let's make sure we're here for another 100. Yeah. Yeah. Gotta go back. I can't get into it. Get it here. Okay. So, wanted to remind you, we've done this before. For those who've been around for a while, 25 years ago, we were in this worship space right here, packed in here, and if you showed up late, some of us have to come up here and sit behind the choir, right? We didn't have the spaces. That was me. People thought I was part of the choir, but you always said but it was a nervous time. We were trying to figure out what should we do. Should we really do that? That's a lot of money, right? But here we are 25 years later. It needs some work, because it's 25 years old now, but it's a beautiful worship space. Beautiful worship space. Father first got here, St. Monica building, like I said, was leaking, the windows were jacked up, there was holes in the bricks and water was coming in. And he stood on the altar and said, hey, I'd like to seal the building. And I need about $27,000. He did some estimates to put those windows in place. I think he was very surprised when at the end of the month, he had $30,000. Because we all pitched in and said, that's our old church, our old school. We want to make sure that's still here. A few years later, he said, I want to do something here. Actually, I was at a parish council meeting in here. We were sitting here, and he said, I want to do this thing called Forward in Faith, and I think we need to raise about $150,000. And a couple of us at the parish council looked at it and looked at ourselves and went, wow, we're barely hanging on right now. What sense does that really make? And then he said, yeah, and if we don't get it, at least we'll get some. But there's times when you got to step out and stand on God and do it in faith. And he says, I'm going to call this Forward in Faith. It took us longer than we expected because of COVID, but we did. We raised $167, I think was the final number. Last month, we talked about billboards. And Armida went up and Eric and said, hey, we want to do this to really push our evangelization step forward. End of the month, we had more than the $8,000 goal. We ended up getting 10, 11, I don't know. Yeah, 10. But when this parish decides something is worthwhile doing, we typically do it. So I just wanted to remind you of that. We've done this before. We've been in this space before. It's uncomfortable to say we want to spend $3 million. Excuse me. But again, with that plan of 50% from grants, 20% from the parish, and financing the rest. And by the way, we've run some of the numbers that we finance 30%. And we have a good event center here. We only need 1 to 1.5 events a month to finance that 30%. So it'll pay for itself. If we do it, it'll pay for itself. Next steps. As I mentioned, we had this review with the diocese next week, a week from Wednesday. We're going to have to kick in a capital campaign. We're going to have to really go after the grants. I've already talked to actually someone who's done it successfully recently. Why not tap into their strengths? Talk to Catholic Charities to say, can we get access to your grant writers? And they said we can make a deal. So we're going to get access to their grant writers and really go after that 50%. We'll have to create a marketing staff. I mean, if we have an event space here, construction, we're going to have to think about even staffing for the church. Okay, so don't have all that detail yet, but nothing's approved yet. So we definitely know that's going to be the next step. It's capital campaign and getting marketing and staffing and all that stuff. Okay? Just before we get into questions, Gaston Jawaka provided us with renderings of what this space could look like. And sometimes it doesn't show up well here, so we got some pictures printed off to in case that you can't see that too well. But it's just estimates or renderings of what this could look like. Okay? So again, there's no design, there's no plan. This is just renderings of what it could look like. Has anybody been down to the cathedral and seen their new space they did? Isn't it beautiful? And guess what? That's not much bigger than this space right now. So that's what we're talking about. In fact, when I was in there, the bishop had a mass for all the nights, and the reception was there afterwards. I was standing there looking like, holy smoke. And Peter says, is this what you want to do in Ferguson? Yeah, it is. So these are just renderings. Depending on the setup, this guy's estimated 160 to 200, depending on how people want the tables and arranged and all that. So we could house a decent. These were just, again, ideas for what the ceiling might look like. There was, again, nothing. But I would say, any questions? Thanks.
So, in the pictures, it's not showing like the outside facilities and accommodation. If we were to bring up the kitchen, we still need elevator?
If you brought up the kitchen, it would really limit the spacing. And so we want to maximize the space here and put a warming kitchen in the back. So a warming.
Can't hear what she's saying.
Yeah, she asked if we brought the kitchen up here, could we save on the elevator? But to answer your question, when you start putting in, this will be a really architectural question, but when you get to the point where you're making major upgrades like this, we also have to get into ADA compliance and all that stuff. They give you a break as long as you're not going to make it construction. But when you start that, they're really going to. We're what's the right way?
It's essentially required to get people up and down the building. You talked about meeting spaces down below, or maybe extension of events down below. Obviously, the kitchen, upgraded warming kitchen. But there was floor plans that were done when the church was building that there was looks at an elevator going in that entryway, and in some of our floor plans we put a bride's room, or maybe restrooms go there or something. But it would be more towards the front where people come in, take the coats off, get ready for the events, and that's where the elevator is. We kind of study where that would go.
Any other questions? There was a comment. Mike had a comment?
No, I was just going to say the plan is excellent. I was just going to stand and say the plan is excellent. I think that you did a great job. I think the thing that we need to focus on as a team, we need to look at the 20% buy-in. I think I heard you say we need to buy in and support 20% from within as you go after grants. I mean, obviously we've done this before. You've been here a while, you know we have the value and add in our DNA to survive. When they were cutting all the churches out of Annunciation and all the other churches, we survived. Remember I was taking this little church down there and we put money together. And we put money together to sustain our church when Annunciation and other churches were being closed. So again, you come from success. Your DNA is success. We should not look at this as something we can't do. We can do it.
Yes, sir.
All we got to do is buy in and get to work.
When we did this, we remember we were the only inner city Catholic church. Oh, sorry. We were the only inner city Catholic church in America that was building a church in this. I don't know if y'all remember that, but we were the only inner city Catholic church in America that was built. So agreed. I think we can do it too. But when we get that 20%, it's more than a pledge. It really has to be a commitment. Because we got to deliver on it. We got to deliver it. Somebody was raising their hand first.
Yes, I just want to know what's the reliability of spending $1 billion on the school building as opposed to fixing up the old administration building. I see that over there is retreat center, the office, and a whole lot of things. And I think we need to do it. I know folks don't want to hear it, but I vote for fixing that up rather than this other church. Because I remember Ernest Robb told us it was going to cost $250,000 to bring that building into compliance, and that was 25 years ago.
Right.
So
compliance is much more expensive now. Yes. Yeah. Ideally, again, that's why I call that our ideal plan. Ideally, we'd like to have it all. Ideally, we'd like to have that for a space for youth and young adults, and something over there that's bringing in younger families. Like I said, that's whether it's a school or a daycare center, it's something that's going to bring people here. Ideally, that's why they were all there. If we don't get that, then we're going to have to make other choices. So at this point, I'd focus on being optimistic and trying to get it all. That was the way we thought about it. Questions, comments?
Have they looked into classifying the school building as a historic building?
Have we looked at classifying the school as a historic building? Is that the question? From what I understand, it's been looked at before, but so many changes have been made, so I don't know if that. But in the grant process, there are grants that are not necessarily based on historical but based on age. So we're gonna go after some of those grants that are just on the history of that building.
Yeah. You probably mentioned this, but the number for everything on the ideal plan is what?
3.2 million.
3.2.
Yes, 3.2 million. Marion?
How many active families do we have in the parish currently?
How many active families do we have in the parish currently? Is that right?
Yeah, active family.
Yeah, in the books we have 240, but again,
Active.
active maybe around 180.
I was just doing some quick numbers, and it's 20% is that the percentage that you have from our
20% of 3.2 million, yes.
it's about, so 3.2 or the 25 million?
The total is 3.2.
3 point,
Okay.
We have to have maybe a commitment of a little bit less than $4,000 from each parent. That sounds about right.
I haven't done that math, but yeah. And the other piece of that is we don't need that money day one. We just have to have the commitment to give it over 5 years. Right. So 5 years.
640,000.
So,
You stated that you have to present this to the diocese like tomorrow?
about 10 days from now.
18th, the 18th. This has to be presented, and what type of time frame or whatever are they expecting us to tell them this will take?
What time frame are they expecting us to tell them it's okay? What does that mean?
No, to take. How, the time frame will take for us to do this? What's the time frame?
Oh, gotcha.
The minimal opportunity that we have.
Gotcha. So this might be a better question from Father, but they're not going to put a time commitment on us. It's more about when we did our capital campaign so as fast as we can come up with 20% pledges and get the grants, that's the time commitment.
You know, sometimes they like to close the door on us, so I would just check this in
No,
there.
they just
And
wait.
do it by a certain time. Okay, very good, thank you.
I mean, I guess anything could happen, but I can't anticipate that the diocese would say no if we raise 70%.
Right.
I mean, think about it. We're growing the church. I can't imagine they would say no. Any other questions, comments? Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, stop and look at these pictures good. Put your hands on it. Feel what it's going to be like.